Hello there. Welcome to another episode of the Rookie's Guide to Sports. Today we're taking a look at a fascinating sport that's often called the fastest game on 2 feet, lacrosse. It's fast, it's physical, and it has one of the coolest backstories in sports. The modern game comes from a traditional Native American game that could last for days and involve hundreds of players. So what happens during a lacrosse match? Let's explore this traditional American sport in detail. How do you score? What are all those lines on the field, and why does the referee keep blowing the whistle? Stick around and I'll break it all down for you in simple terms. Let's start with the basics. Lacrosse is a team sport played with a small rubber ball and a long stick with a net at the end, called a lacrosse stick or crosse. The goal is simple. Get the ball into the opponent's net more times than they get it into yours. Even simpler and with apples, pass the ball, hold it in the pouch of your stick, and eventually put it in the opponent's goal. Players run, pass, catch, and shoot using the stick, not their hands. And the game is built on speed, quick passes, and smart movement. If you've ever watched it and thought, this looks like a mix of hockey, basketball, and football, you're actually not far off. It is played in teams of 10 players, 1 goalkeeper, and 9 field players. This is the pitch. In men's field lacrosse, the game is usually played on a field similar in size to a football pitch, roughly about 100 meters long and around 55 to 60 meters wide. On each end, there's a goal that looks a bit like a hockey net, usually about 1.8 meters wide by 1.8 meters high, with a circular area around it. That painted circle around the goal is one of the most important markings on the field. It's called the crease, and only the goalkeeper is allowed to stand inside it when the ball is in play. Attacking players can jump toward it and shoot while they're in the air, but they must release the ball before landing in the crease. If they land with the ball, the goal doesn't count. You'll also notice a line across the middle of the field. That's the midfield line, which splits the field into 2 halves. Teams have to keep a minimum number of players on each side of that line, so they can't just send everyone forward on attack. You must always keep at least 4 players on your defensive half, and at least 3 players beyond the midfield line, regardless of which team has possession of the ball. In this image, you see that the red team has 4 players on their defensive side, 3 players on the offensive side, and in the bottom, the remaining 3 players that can be in either side of the half line. If a team fails to organize their players like this, the referee will mark an offside. Closer to each goal, there are often extra lines called restraining lines or boxes. In lacrosse, the restraining line is a stripe that runs all the way across the field, about 20 yards in front of each goal. It creates an exclusion zone where only certain players are allowed during the start of play, known as the face-off. During the face-off, each team can have up to 2 players positioned between that line and the midfield. When you're watching, remember, the crease protects the goalie, the midfield line controls how many players can attack, and the other lines help keep the game organized and flowing. Now, how does a lacrosse game actually work? A typical lacrosse game is divided into 4 quarters, usually 15 minutes each at higher levels, with short breaks in between and a longer halftime. This allows for recovery and reorganizing the team's strategy. The game starts with a face-off at the center of the field. 2 players crouch down with their sticks on the ground and the ball between them. When the whistle blows, they battle to scoop up the ball and gain possession for their team. Once a team has the ball, they move it up the field by running and by passing from stick to stick. Players use a movement called cradling, a gentle rocking motion of the stick, to keep the ball safely in the pocket. If you're watching and you see a player constantly moving their stick back and forth, that's not just a style choice. It shows they stop the ball from flying out. A shot is simply when a player throws the ball toward the goal, trying to beat the goalkeeper. If it goes in, that's 1 goal. Every goal is worth 1 point, no matter where you shoot from. There are no 3-pointers or bonus goals. 1 shot, 1 point. Quick timeout for a second. If you're finally starting to understand what's happening in a lacrosse game, this is exactly what the Rookie's Guide to Sports is all about. We take different sports and explain them in plain language, so you can actually enjoy watching them instead of feeling lost. If that sounds useful, consider subscribing and checking out the other sports we've already covered. Alright, let's get back to the field. Because lacrosse is fast and physical, there are clear rules about what you can and can't do. Defenders are allowed to use their stick to tap or hit the opponent's stick in an attempt to knock the ball loose. This is called stick checking. They can also use their body to bump an opponent, called a body check, but only in certain areas of the body and only when the player has the ball or is very close to it. Hits to the head, from behind, or wildly swinging the stick are not allowed. When these go too far, you'll see the referee raise their arm and send a player to the penalty area. That team then plays with one fewer player for a short period, which gives the other team a man-up advantage, a bit like a power play in ice hockey. Some of the most common mistakes and fouls are worth learning because they explain a lot of whistles. Slashing is when a player swings their stick dangerously and hits an opponent's body instead of just their stick. There's also warding off, when an attacking player uses their free hand or arm to push a defender away while cradling the ball. That's not allowed, and the ball can be turned over to the other team. When you hear the whistle, watch what the referee signals and see which of these fouls it might be. After a few games, you'll start to recognize them instantly. If you're just getting into lacrosse, here are a few simple strategic things to watch for that will help the game make a lot more sense. First, watch what happens right after a team wins the ball, that transition from defense to attack. These moments can lead to some of the most exciting goals in the game. And also, pay attention to players who don't have the ball. They're constantly cutting toward the goal, setting picks, and then slipping into open space. Lacrosse offenses are built on movement, not just one player trying to do everything. Let's finish with a fun fact. The roots of lacrosse go back hundreds of years to indigenous peoples in North America, who played an early form of the game as a spiritual and community event. Some matches involved hundreds of players in fields so large that goals could be kilometers apart. Games could last from sunrise to sunset and continue for several days. Compared to that, today's four-quarter neatly timed lacrosse games are the short, modern version of a very old tradition. That's the end of this episode of the Rookie's Guide to Sports. If you'd like to learn more about other sports and finally understand what's going on when you watch them, check out the playlist in the description. There you'll find all our other Rookie's Guide episodes waiting for you. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss an episode. See you next time!